following is a DEADBUG documentary. If you're watching it anywhere else than my channel, then some thieving fuck stole it.
Warning, the following program contains scenes of death.
止まったなので保持してくれ。しっかり自分保持よ。捕まる。捕まっとかないとどうなるかわかんない。10メーターだね。うわ。これ第2弾来るからな。4面全身重負荷の。
It was Friday afternoon on Japan's largest island. And something strange was happening in the island's bay. And if the locals were wondering what, they didn't have to wonder for long. Because that same water that had left the bay returned with a vengeance. And little did anybody know that it was an hour before, about 2 miles offshore, that Japan had experienced its largest earthquake ever, the 4th largest in the world's history. And although ignorance is bliss, it doesn't cut it as an excuse for the Reaper. And it was a slow, excruciating death that visited the land of stinky fish and noodles that day. Because over 15,000 souls were taken from blunt force trauma and drowning. And over 300 were never found. With some of those corpses washing up as far as Alaska, and at that point, well, they weren't looking their best.
Sir, just blink twice if you need help.
Oh my Lord, take this soul, lay me at the bottom of the river. The devil has come to carry me home, lay me at the bottom of the river.
I'll be back in a second, honey. I'm just going to get some milk. Whoop, shut the door. Good luck. I love you.
Take this hand, save me from the gallows. Shed this news, bear my gold, lay me in the shallows. Evil come if you call my name, wicked day shall rise. The river sand's gonna wash me clean if the river don't run dry. Oh my Lord, take this soul, lay me at the bottom of the river. The devil has come to carry me home, lay me at the bottom of the river. Can save. Oh my Lord, take this soul, lay me at the bottom of the river. The devil has come to carry me home, lay me at the bottom of the
Take this soul, lay me at the bottom of
Shut the fuck up. Towering over the landscape, at 9,677 foot of foreboding beauty, Mount St. Helens has been dormant for 123 years, with hundreds of campers converging every weekend to take in its natural beauty. And why not? If I didn't have a girlfriend and was a lonely loser, I'd go there too. It was early morning, March 27th, when a group of forestry workers, working 5 miles from the peak, thought that they'd heard an explosion. But with there being other private crews working in the area, they dismissed it as a controlled explosion, often used to remove tree stumps, when in actuality, Mount St. Helens is no longer dormant. A small explosion of steam and ash has opened up a 200-foot crater at the mountain's summit. It's when one of the logging companies sent up a helicopter to investigate, they realized that the sleeping giant was no longer sleeping. And when word leaked out, every tourist and egghead in the area converged on the mountain. I hate tourists. And despite warnings, I guess they figured it was worth it to take in the sights. And for the next 2 weeks, the mountain throbbed like Terminator-era Arnold Schwarzenegger's ballsack on a first date, begging to release its hot liquid load. And when the experts started warning the government started warning the residents who weren't all so keen to evacuate.
That's my life. Spirit Lake and Mount St. Helens is my life, folks. I've lived there 50 years. It's a part of me. That mountain and that lake is a part of Truman, and I'm a part of it.
Then you're gonna die there, motherfucker. And residents like Harry Truman became local folk heroes, ignoring the government's orders. But after a month and no eruption, the residents who did heed the warning and evacuated were getting fed up, getting pissed off, and they wanted back in, because why should an old fucker like Harry Truman be the only one to soak up the attention?
We're paying taxes and we'd like to use our property. I'm not afraid.
Well, honey, you should be. And if not you, your poor husband who's gotta lay with you. But it was early on a Sunday that the mountain decided to blow its load. And there was no place to run, no place to hide. Molten lava bukkake to the motherfucking masses. And every cocksucker who thought he could get a good photo were now running for their lives. Except for poor old Harry Truman, who probably sat in his rocking chair praying to his God and shitting himself. Tick-tock, tick-tock. What's that, Harry, you may ask? That's the death clock, and your time is up, with the intense heat of the lava melting the ice caps, sending 46 billion gallons of water down the side of the mountains. And for those who ignored the government warning and entered the red zone, well, they just bought themselves a first-class ticket to the abyss. For those who thought that they could outrun the Reaper, there were nothing left but a fucking puddle.
Absolute and total devastation of a region that encompasses about 150 miles. It's the worst thing I have ever seen.
It is in this life that we live, going about our day-to-day activities, never stopping to realize that it is not us that holds sway. It is a greater power. And putting aside our gods, there is no greater power than Mother Nature. Case in point, a French airliner deemed so modern that it would almost be impossible to be brought from the sky. But when you fly into the face of God, you're gonna get burned. It was when French Airlines Flight 447 set off from a Rio de Janeiro airport, bound for Paris, France. The relatives and loved ones got to say goodbye for the last time, literally. And as the pride and joy of Air France's fleet set off, there wasn't a care in the world. With the flight now somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, people have had their meal, and now they're settling down to sleep. With 8 hours until they hit Paris, the captain flies into storm clouds. The plane begins to experience what is known as St. Elmo's fire, where ice pellets hit the airplane and discharge into electricity, illuminating the plane with electrical charge and a strange blue light, common to tropical countries. Despite the storm, the captain hands control over to the least experienced of the crew and tells him he's going to have a nap. As the aircraft nears the equator, the weather deteriorates into severe storms, with notorious storm clouds that are impossible for commercial airlines to fly over. Thunderstorms that can cause severe updrafts and downdrafts, even structural damage, which should only be navigated by the most experienced of pilots. It is just after 2 a.m. that a loud noise is heard on the black box, followed by an alarm. It's now believed that this sound was frozen ice pellets hitting the plane. Not unusual, and certainly something that wouldn't bring a plane down. This alarm lets the pilots know that the autopilot has been disengaged and is now on manual, and the least experienced of the crew is now flying the plane. And to make matters worse, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and in terms of alertness, the crew are at their most vulnerable. What either men realize is that the frozen ice has caused the speed sensors to temporarily stop working, also temporarily turning off the autopilot. And it was then, for reasons that no one will ever know, the co-pilot dramatically pulled back on his side stick. And by doing so, he puts the plane into a steep climb. It is this action alone that doomed the passenger jet. Because if the co-pilot had done nothing, the speed sensors would have cleared the ice in a minute and continued back to autopilot. The aircraft is now climbing rapidly and losing speed, reaching 40,000 feet where the air is too thin to support the aircraft's weight. It was then, because of the altitude and the thinness of the air, that the plane stalled and started plummeting to earth, or better still, water. If the inexperienced co-pilot wants to fix it, he needs to act quickly. It's at this moment that the frozen speed sensors come back online, giving accurate information that the pilots no longer believe. As the captain finally enters the cabin, he realizes what his inexperienced co-pilot has done and attempts to correct it. There isn't enough air or time, and the aircraft hits the water like a bullet fired from a gun, disintegrating. With the inexperienced co-pilot's last words being, "Fuck, we're gonna crash." Now, at least he got something right. But it is not only machines, piloted by the foolhardy, that test Mother Nature's patience, but mankind himself, powered by his own 2 legs and ignorance alone. Mount Everest, its great beauty, only to be measured by the great level of stupidity of those who climb her. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. But it's his foot, because there's been more than one climber who's attempted to tickle Everest's teeth and hasn't returned home.
Hi, how are ya?
But it was in 2014 when a group of 25 Sherpas were preparing for the climbing season to start. A time when rich young white men descend on the mountain and climb it so they got something to brag about in the bars. But it was out of nowhere that an ice avalanche rained death upon them. And there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Because how can you run from 31 million pounds of ice and rock barreling down on you like Jesus coming in for the kill? And although the word avalanche suggested it was just snow, it was an ice avalanche, raining dagger-sized pieces of ice down on its victims, cutting them up into bite-sized pieces.
No, wait.
With the lesson being here, fuck with Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will fuck with you.
Legion forever!
That book says no more.